Welcome back to NTV Weekend Edition. It's great to be back after a long sabbatical from COVID-19 millionaires, and a lot of people expecting really to get a lot from tonight's discussion. I'm not always the bearer of bad news. Short of hope, let's talk about vaccination. We are still trying to adjust to what we called a new normal last year. It has been rough for many who have either lost jobs, businesses, or loved ones. We are still dealing with the staggering figures globally when it comes to the spread of the virus. The whole world is pushing to get the COVID-19 pandemic under control. The country has lost many lives. Many more are in hospitals across the counties, and the restrictions have pushed many to the edges of uncertainty, with a big population yet to be vaccinated. The total caseload, as Zainab earlier mentioned, in Kenya now stands at 138,988. The latest figures of those who have died stands at 2,224. Unfortunately, there's little sign that these numbers are going down anytime soon. A lot to unpack in this year's first NTV virtual town hall on the vaccination program. Let us deal with the facts and the fears, the myths, to help us push the conversation forward. I'm now joined by Dr. Willis Akwale, who's chair COVID-19 Vaccine Deployment Task Force. We also have Dr. Githinji Gitahi, who's the Group CEO, Amref Health Africa, and also Lynette Kamadi, the Executive Secretary, Kupet Mombasa, joins us from our Mombasa studios. And last but not least, Celestine Lagat, a business lady in Eldoret, joins us from her home. And just to point out that all of our panelists are joining us from home. And of course, we have you as the viewer to join this conversation. It's very, very easy. Use the hashtag #ShortOfHope at NTV Kenya, at Dennis Okari on Twitter. Now, we received your questions via WhatsApp, and shortly I will direct them to the doctors. But first things first, ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for your time and for joining us. And I think I'll start with the two doctors, and maybe Dr. Willis. Have you been vaccinated? Well, sounds a pretty obvious question. Have you been vaccinated?
Yes, I was vaccinated on the 9th of March at Mutuini Sub-County Hospital in Dagoretti North.
Any side effects? Fatigue, diarrhea, fever?
No, just a little bit of numbness of the arm, a little bit feeling heavy on the second day, and after that I was as fresh as I could imagine.
Okay, great, Dr. Ari. Dr. Githinji Gitahi, who's the Group CEO, Amref Health Africa. Have you been vaccinated?
Yes, Dennis, I was vaccinated on the first day when we were launching the country's vaccination program at Kenyatta National Hospital. And I have been fine. I actually had minimal pain on the site of injection. I didn't experience a fever. I didn't experience any extreme fatigue. So I have been fine since then. Okay. I'm waiting for my second one at the end of April.
Okay, both doctors and for our viewers, just for purposes of clarity, I haven't been vaccinated yet. I'm not a very big fan of jabs. I will at some point. Lynette Kamadi, have you been vaccinated?
No, I have not been vaccinated. Initially, I thought you just walk into a facility and you are vaccinated. Only to arrive and I was told there is protocol to be followed. You are supposed to fill a form and submit it, and you are given time when you are supposed to go for the jab. So I'm due for my jab on Tuesday.
I know, Lynette, you have a lot of concerns. We will break those down. Let me first go quickly to Celestine, who is in Eldoret. Celestine, have you been vaccinated?
Not yet. I have not been vaccinated.
Have you tried getting that vaccination?
Yes, but I don't fall in the category of those who are eligible for now, above 58, and the essential workers like the medical personnel and the teachers.
Okay, Celeste.
And most of the centers also, they had run out of the vaccine.
Okay, Celestine, apologies for that. I know we're going to have that short delay each time I'm asking a question and you're responding. We'll just get used to that. I have a very, very short time to break a lot of things down. We have a lot of questions that have come in from our viewers on my Twitter handle at NTV Kenya, at Dennis Okari. And we also had asked you the questions earlier, and some of you have sent in your question via video. But first things first, I want to ask my first question to Dr. Willis. Now, why has Kenya banned the Russian COVID-19 vaccine, Sputnik, when it earlier had approved it for emergency use? Very briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis, for raising that. Let me start by saying that, yes, Sputnik had been given import license by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. There were certain conditions that needed to be met before its deployment. And there were also rules and regulations and emergency use in which it was deployed that were very categorical, including the fact that you cannot advertise it because it hasn't got market authorization. And also the other key aspect was that any vaccinations have to be conducted in a facility accredited by the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentist Council. We got reports of violation, and the Pharmacy Board actually informed the task force that even a warning had been issued. And on Friday, when the National Emergency Response Committee, under the chairmanship of the Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe, when they met, they reviewed that, and also some other concerns, especially in ensuring that the quality of the vaccination, that the public health interest comes first. So it was deemed necessary to have the ban so that the framework and the infrastructure, a transparent infrastructure that would even ensure monitoring of all vaccines coming to the country in line with global practice are put in place.
Thank you, Dr. Willis. Dr. Githinji, with everything that has been said about, the Russian vaccine and the AstraZeneca vaccine, some EU countries have actually paused the rollout of the AstraZeneca vaccine amid concerns of blood clots and other health complications. Someone has asked a question: why insist on vaccinating Kenyans without addressing quite a number of these concerns? Are we doing this as an experiment?
Thanks, Dennis, and let me take just a few seconds first to explain what this is about. That vaccines have been in use since the 17th century, so they are not new. Secondly, Kenya vaccinates, and many other countries and across the continent, across the world, vaccinate millions of children every year, every day, every month, every week. So it's not new. Now, we know that when vaccines are developed, there are two major issues. First, vaccine development is a very robust process. Starts off with preclinical studies using animals, then moves to phase 1 clinical, where it uses a group of people. All the vaccines have gone through that. Then goes to phase 2, which uses a bigger number of people, maybe up to 1,000 or more, and then goes to phase 3, where it uses tens of thousands of people who participate in the trials. All these have happened in all these vaccines, and they're looking out for two things. One, most importantly, safety of the vaccines. During all the start from the preclinical to phase 3, all side effects are recorded, they are followed up, and they are checked. And then number 2 is the efficacy. Does the vaccine work to boost the immunity in the human being against the intended disease? These two have been checked in all these vaccines. Now, the thing to realize that every vaccine that we give, including the measles for children, BCG for TB, all have side effects. And those side effects can be mild, can be moderate, or can be severe. And the way to monitor them is through monitoring and reporting and checking. Now, what happens with the vaccines, to explain your question directly, is whenever there is somebody who received a vaccine and they are noticed to have a particular side effect, it has to be checked precautionary, because you have to associate to know, is that effect from the vaccine or coincidental? Many of the countries in Europe that stopped this vaccine were precautionary. Nobody has actually been able to link directly the vaccine with the clots. Clots happen largely in Europe. We know they happen in 5 out of 1 million people generally, even without vaccine. The question is there an increased incidence in the people vaccinated? There is still studies going on. That's why some countries returned back to vaccinating. Generally, side effects are there. The question is always, are they related directly to the vaccine? And are they significant to stop the benefits of vaccination over the risk that they may cause? So this is the framework, and all countries go on. Canada is going on. Countries in Europe have reopened. And the advice of Africa CDC in Africa and WHO is that we should continue vaccinating. So Kenya is following science. It's not acting on its own.
Okay, and like they say, science is progressive. But Dr. Willis, just a quick one. What indemnity has Kenya signed with the vaccine providers? And in this particular case, AstraZeneca. We initially dealt with the issue of COVID-19 millionaires last year, you know, with the PPEs and everything else that KEMSA was handling. Are we likely to see another scandal with this vaccine, probably creating vaccine billionaires?
Let me start with the very first one about indemnity. So under the COVAX mechanism, in which Kenya is a member state, Kenya has signed into what they call a no-fault compensation mechanism, which is administered by the COVAX partner coalition of the willing. Under this, if there will be any serious side event, reaction that may require hospitalization, or if there will be any death, and if investigations are done by an independent team to show that that was actually caused by the vaccine, then there will be compensation for that. So that's the indemnity. And that is a crucial point, because even as the private sector gears to bring in vaccines, they must have an indemnity arrangement as well. Now, on the issue of the billionaires, let me really state that under the vaccination program, we will be as transparent as it has never been before. We will share figures. It is important for people to actually even know that the current vaccines is a donation. Immediately they came, there were all these negative sentiments and people saying this has happened. That was actually a donation. And it's important for people to know under that mechanism, COVAX is going to support the vaccination of 20% of our population, or 40% of the adult population. So earlier in the news, we heard of 24 million doses. 24 million doses translates to about 12 million adult Kenyans to be vaccinated. So it's not 24 million Kenyans. While the government will procure 11 million doses to vaccinate 10% of overall population, or 20% of the adult population. Over.
All right, Dr. Githinji, very quickly, before I go to our first video question that was sent to us via WhatsApp, and then I'll go later to Lynette to just find out what are the concerns of the teachers with regards to the vaccination program. What happens to those who have already been vaccinated with the Russian vaccine? Can they go for the AstraZeneca vaccine for their second shot?
The science available. The science available, because again, this is progressive evidence. The science available is that if you take your first dose from a particular vaccine, then your second dose should from the same vaccine. You cannot mix two platforms, different vaccines from first dose, second dose. That's the current available science. If anything changes, I'm sure we'll be advised by WHO and other regulatory agencies.
All right, let's go to our first question that was sent to us via video. And this is Paul Nganga coming from Ngong.
What is the scientific position on the specific antibodies that come with the vaccine versus the non-specific antibodies that the people who have survived corona have? We are told that there are differences between these two antibodies.
Either of the doctors, you can answer that, Dr. Willis or Dr. Githinji.
Yeah, let me say something about Sputnik and then ask Dr. Githinji to answer the issue of the antibodies. Now, by the time the ban was issued by Cabinet Secretary on Friday, there were 527 people who had received Sputnik and were captured in the Chanjo Kenya system. So the plan is that for those 527 people, their second dose will be reserved. Outside that, if you are vaccinated and you are never captured in that system, then it will be too bad.
All right, thank you, Dr.
Githinji?
Well, let us not go into this a public show. So I would prefer that we don't go into memory cells and, IgG and all those things, or rather we don't do that. Let us just understand the following, that your body, when you get a disease, let's start with a disease, your body prepares immunity, which is what we call antibodies. Those are produced to be specific to the offending virus or the offending bacteria. And what we mean by antibodies is that these are ammunition, bullets or guns that your body can use in future if the same disease comes. Many of the people listening and watching us now know about chickenpox. That when we were young, you're told if you get chickenpox once, you cannot get it again, because when you get it once, your body prepares enough antibodies for any future attack by the chickenpox virus. But not all diseases are like chickenpox and therefore give a very specific and strong and long-term and lasting response in your body. Some need to be boosted and assisted. Now, when we are doing that, the body does produce antibodies, but also produces memory cells. Memory cells are cells in your body that actually keep memory, almost like a computer, and say, this is how we produced these antibodies last time. So that if it comes again, then we know what to do and quickly. It's almost like doing a drill. I'll explain to some people recently that vaccination is like saying there's a bully who is going to come and beat you, and you know they're going to come. You then talk to your neighbors and your family and say, this is the photo of this bully, recognize the bully, so that when the bully comes and you see the bully at the gate, you can then protect me. So when the bully comes, the neighbors know the bully, your family knows the bully, they protect you. That is basically what vaccination is. We are teaching your body to recognize the potential bully, in this case, coronavirus that causes COVID-19. Let's just leave it there without going into the depth of antibodies and the specific and non-specific antibodies, because I don't think we have time and the science and the audience for that right now.
Well, thank you so much, Gideonji. I think you've read my mind. You've schooled us to go back to biology in Form 2 with regards to antibodies. Let me quickly go to Lynette Kamadi, who's the Executive Secretary, KUPPET, from Mombasa. Lynette, I understand you're going to receive your vaccine on Tuesday. At a personal level, and from the teachers that you're interacting with from Mombasa, what are your concerns and what do you expect?
Thank you, Dennis. As a teacher, I have my personal concerns and concerns of my fellow colleagues about the safety of the vaccine. Going by the side effects that we are hearing about, nobody is coming out very clearly to explain this issue of blood clots. It is actually not, whenever we ask about it, it is brushed aside. But as a teacher and the entire teaching fraternity, we are asking the medical practitioners to honestly tell us, why has AstraZeneca been suspended in other countries? Why is it that it is associated with blood clots? And why is it that in other countries it is not being allowed to be given to people below 58 years of age? And while in Kenya, we are asking every other person to go for this vaccine. So that is part of the concerns. Another thing we are concerned about is the other side effects like the headache, the fever, the joint pains, the thirst that somebody goes through. And then there are some people among the teachers who have gotten the jab. Some were even complaining that they were feeling like they are losing their memory. We are asking, who is there following out on these side effects, and where do we go to be given explanation? I think, Dennis, what is the problem that is facing Kenya is communication. Communication does not come properly and accurately as we expect. So it comes in piecemeal, giving room for a lot of rumor and a lot of speculations and conspiracy theories, which becomes a hindrance to people undertaking or listening to the experts as it is supposed to be. So we are concerned about how communication is given and how people are clarifying about the very serious side effects, especially the blood clot issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynette. Let me go quickly to Celestine before we take a break. Celestine, are these the same concerns that you also have, or what are the issues that you'd want to raise concerning this vaccine program?
Yeah, my concern is now for us who do not fall in either category, that the essential services like the medical personnel, the doctors, the teachers, and the people above 58. Now those of us who are below, below 40, we are business people, we are here and there, and we are willing to take this vaccine, and it is not available for us. Now what happens to us? And again, when is the second batch coming? Because, all of us want this vaccine, and the government has not told us exactly when it's coming and how many, doses. And another thing is, they said also they don't vaccinate the pregnant women and the children. What happens to their, some of them are at a high risk. What happens to them? Another thing is, we have been told there are so many variants right now. The virus has mutated and there are so many variants. I want to ask the doctors, is this AstraZeneca able to fight against these variants that are mutating? Because maybe we are told COVID is different today from, the way it came. What happens? And I want to know, as a Kenyan and a person who is not a medical personnel, if maybe you're not sure that you are COVID positive and you go for your vaccine, what happens if you're an active case? Is there any precautions you should take? Are you supposed to be tested first before you take the vaccine? Or what happens? Another question is, what happens? Let's say you have been vaccinated. Are you sure, or is it true that you're not able to infect others? I'll take that for now.
Well, thank you so much, Celestine Lagat. I'm seeing the two doctors busy scribbling and noting those questions down, quite a lot of questions. And these questions that, Lynette and Celestine have asked sums up a lot of the questions that we've been receiving from you as our viewer. And we will take a short break. When we come back, we'll allow Dr. Willis Akwale and Dr. Githinji to answer those same questions. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Do your gums hurt?
Yeah.
Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile?
All that in one toothpaste?
Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums.
Ah, Colgate Herbal.
Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Africanacity is not just a word, it is part of who we are and our commitment to working with you to find a way to get things done. We love Africanacity. We are one with you.
No matter what's going on in the world, there's one place you can go to stay up to date with the latest global news. The BBC News World Service app helps you go behind the headlines and make sense of what's going on around the world. And with a call to listen button, you can listen to live radio without using your data. Download the BBC News World Service app and start listening today.
Welcome back to this conversation about the vaccine program and rollout. We're having a virtual town hall and we have with us two doctors, Dr. Willis Akwale, who's the chair COVID-19 Vaccine Deployment Task Force, Dr. Githinji Gitahi, who's the group CEO, AMREF Health Africa, Lynette Kamadi, the Executive Secretary, KUPPET in Mombasa, and Celestine Lagat, who's a business lady in Eldoret. They have asked the all-important questions. Before we go to Dr. Willis and Githinji to answer the questions that they have raised, I want to speak to someone on phone just to get a feel, because apart from the two doctors who've been vaccinated, the two ladies have not been vaccinated. But let me talk to someone who has been vaccinated, and I believe on phone I have Abdul Rahman Wandati.
Yes, this is Abdul Rahman Wandati from Butere.
From Butere, Kakamega County. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening to you, Dennis. How are you?
Very, very well. Couldn't be better. So, have you been vaccinated?
Yes, I was vaccinated.
When?
About a week ago.
How old are you, if I may ask?
I'll turn 60 in July this year.
Oh, so you fit within the group that's supposed to receive that first dose?
Yes.
Any side effects? Because a lot of people have raised concerns with this vaccine, with the side effects. Do you have any side effects?
No, I don't.
Did you go alone, or did you also have your age mates going to receive the vaccine with you? And maybe from the discussions you've had with them, what are they saying?
Actually, what happened is that we had a discussion as a family, I and my kids. They felt I needed the vaccine. I felt since the nation is not vaccinating everybody, why don't I remain in the group of those who will not be vaccinated? Then they said, no, we think you need it. So I said, okay, I'll have a talk with my doctor. So I called up my doctor, Dr. Matthew Koech in Eldoret, Octree. So I asked him all the questions I needed to know about how safe the vaccine was for me and whether I really needed it or I could dodge it. So he said, no, you need it. So I asked, where can I get it? He said, in any facility, or you can come to the clinic. So I chose to go to the clinic.
Did you prior to receiving the vaccine, did you have any concerns perhaps when you're having those discussions with your doctor?
I had read a lot of stories online. But you see, being a Muslim, I'm not swayed by what I see online because Islam says you have to confirm before you take a position. For us, even this disease and treatment is also a spiritual and religious issue. So once a doctor has said that you need it, you can only avoid it if another doctor that you trust better or better qualified than the one who told you you need it says you don't need it. But as long as the qualified doctor says you need it, you must. It's a religious duty to then get the treatment.
Wow, thank you very much, Abdul Rahman Wandati from Butere, Kakamega County. Faith also plays a role in this. Dr. Willis, Dr. Githinji, Kazi Kwenu. There are a lot of questions from our two ladies, Lynette and Celestine. Just to recap, for those who've missed some of those questions, and I won't go into the details, but the issue of side effects. Lynette feels there's not enough communication. There are many teachers who are raising concerns of the side effects, in particular the issue of blood clots. It's not being addressed correctly. And also those who are not in the category of receiving the first dose, like what Celestine was asking, what happens to those willing Kenyans? And I'm sure you've noted the rest when the second batch is coming into the country, the issue of women who are pregnant, if they can receive the vaccine, and for the breastfeeding mothers as well, and the issue of the variants. For example, in TZ, we are seeing those concerns from South Africa. Those concerns is this vaccine going to, deal with the mutating variants that we're seeing of this pandemic? So I'll start with Dr. Willis.
Okay. Now, thank you very much, Dennis. I will actually deal with the questions that are dealing with safety, the issue of the second batch. I'll also touch on use of the vaccines in pregnant women. I will ask my colleague who also supports the task force, Gitai Githinji, to talk about the clots, the issue of variants, and about COVID positive and vaccination, and whether they can transmit. I think if we divide that way, we will answer most of those questions. Let me start by safety, and start by saying that, as Dr. Githinji said, by the time you undergo clinical trials phase 3, efficacy and safety has been assessed, and a vaccine cannot be issued with emergency use authorization if it is not safe. So that's the first one. However, as you start deploying in large population, you are supposed to set up a system to monitor any minor side effects that may occur and monitor them over a period of time and report them. Here in Kenya, this report is actually consolidated at the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. So the system we have in place is that at the vaccination post, we take your contacts and you identify the post. If you go home and you feel, really you are feeling something that is beyond what we've told you as minor and common effects, you are supposed to call the healthcare worker. Alternatively, you can go to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board website and lodge that a complaint and say there's a form you'll fill online and say this is what you felt. In fact, to date, I can report we have 277 reports of side effects since we started the vaccination, now very close to a month, out of which 200 have been reported by healthcare workers, and I think something like 60 by the patients themselves. Now, most of the minor and mild side effects is what we've just mentioned, pain at the arm, a bit of headache, a bit of lethargy, fever. Now, we have, however, 7 events that we call serious because at this time, anything that would touch on what you call the musculoskeletal system, then it's considered as one that one would need to follow. So especially weakness, if you are unable to walk immediately after vaccination. We have others where people have said they have, and not many, actually I'm talking of 7. So there's one where somebody said they were producing more saliva than another one. In another one, they were saying that they were scratching too much in the body. And there's one which indicated that they felt dizzy and lost consciousness for a period about 4 hours. So all these are then followed over time. Some of these have recovered. The ones that don't recover then, they are reported to the pharmacy board, and the pharmacy board consolidates those reports and sends them to a committee known as the National Vaccine Safety Advisory Committee. That is then the one that is mandated to look at if the actual cause of that side effect was the vaccine or not. Okay. And remember, we then report to a bigger global database. This is a very crucial process, which we had to really ensure it's in place. And there's also random checking. Apart from this routine reporting, the pharmacy board actually works with the manufacturers and creates a system where they can randomly go to the community, ask the way you've just asked my village mate, Andati, and ask him whether they got any problems. And if that, then it's also investigated. So it's a robust system. So far, no deaths in Kenya. And even what we've recorded as severe side events, really up to this point, they really don't warrant stopping any of our vaccination programs. Now, let me then talk about the second batch. But before that, then pregnant women. Specific for AstraZeneca, the manufacturer has listed pregnancy and use in children under 18 as contraindicated. So as we deploy it, we cannot vaccinate them. And therefore, you remove this population, and that is why in this first phase and going to the second phase, we are really dealing with the adult population. However, studies have been ongoing. A lot of this is because there was no evidence. So if evidence comes about safety in pregnancy, then we will be informed, and the manufacturer can then allow us to use that. The same thing with children. Okay, Dr. So Willis, for the time being, I know you may be reading in media
Dr. Willis, I'm so sorry,
there's a possibility you can use this. However, Dr. in Willis, the setup at which we are deploying, it's very clear we cannot vaccinate in pregnancy, and especially during the first 3 months when the organs are forming in the womb, that is not totally allowed. I know in some jurisdictions and some countries, they are saying if somebody, the risk of corona, especially in the second and third trimester, a medical practitioner may weigh risks. However, under the current deployment as directed by our regulator, Pharmacy and Poisons Board, and the manufacturer, we cannot use that vaccine in pregnancy.
All right, Dr. Willis, if you can hear me, allow me to just to let Githinji come in quickly. I know you're going to handle the issue of the second batch. We'll come right to that. About the issue of the variants, there's a concern, especially with our neighboring country, Tanzania, the mutation that is taking place of this virus and the many variants all the way from the UK and South Africa. If we are still vaccinating people with AstraZeneca, will this vaccine deal with the variants that we are seeing and the mutations of this virus very quickly? I don't have a lot of time, but very quickly.
Yeah, you know, Dennis, the mutations of vaccines are normal. They're common, especially this type of vaccine. They're called RNA vaccine, viruses, sorry, this type of virus. The flu virus mutates all the time, and that's why the flu vaccine, has multiple variants of it, is combined. So we know that sometimes mutations can affect the way the virus works. For now, we do not have strong evidence to say that the variants available are escaping, the particular vaccine. We are aware that there is a mutation of UK origin, and the UK is still continuing to vaccinate people using AstraZeneca. So if this happens in future, scientists are already in the lab, from my knowledge and from WHO information, looking at future variations in the vaccines to ensure that with the new variants, then they will be handled. So we do not have any evidence that any particular mutant or any variant will affect our vaccination agenda. And what's most important right now is to save lives. And even if we save lives for a year or two and then we have to develop a new vaccine and a booster, it's all fine. I'm not saying it will happen, but it is all fine. So right now it's about saving lives.
And quickly, Dr. Githinji, what happens when you unknowingly get a COVID-19 jab when you're already infected with the virus itself and you're positive?
So the advice on all vaccines is that there's no COVID test needed before vaccination. That tells you actually that there's no risk of receiving the vaccine when you have COVID. Now, this is what is happening in reality. If you do not know you have COVID, and you may, because 93% of our COVID cases are asymptomatic, they have no symptoms. So we get it, we don't know. If you receive the vaccine, there's no challenge at all. It's fine. You receive the vaccine, it helps you to build adequate immunity. If you have COVID and you also have symptoms, fever and others, just like we advise children when they come for vaccination and they have a fever, we say, go home, and when the fever goes, come for the vaccine. So if you have active COVID disease, the advice is wait for it to go, then in 4 to 6 weeks, go back and get your vaccination. Now, what we have seen is that in some instances where people are positive, the immune response is actually bigger. So those people are likely, not all of them, a few of them are likely to get a little more severe fever, more fatigue, which means that actually the immunity is building faster. And we must remind people that side effects are actually an indicator that your body is building immunity. So we must see them as a positive thing happening in your body. So this is the only thing, but no one should worry that they'll receive the vaccine and because they have COVID, it will affect them negatively. No.
Well, thank you, Dr. Githinji. We'll go back to Dr. Willis before we go back to Celestine and Lynette. I believe I have a caller on line, and I believe this is Mark from Nairobi. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Dennis.
You got vaccinated when?
On the 1st of April.
Any side effects, any concerns?
Yes, I got vaccinated at around 1 p.m. 6 hours later, the fever kicked in. It was really bad. I had to start looking for my emergency numbers. Apparently, it subsided within the night, but at intervals it would come and go. But by morning, I was good enough.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mark. So, Dr. Willis, Mark received his jab 6 hours later. 6 hours later, started developing some symptoms and some side effects. Now, is it true that women are more likely to get worse side effects from the vaccine than men?
I don't have that information at all, and I doubt it is. I think it is bodies will react differently because of our genetic makeup, and it will be across the sexes. Yes, some people are not getting any, others, as he has reported. So basically what happens when you are doing your phase 2 and phase 3, all the side effects that are observed during that time are listed, we are given, and so that as we do under emergency use, we keep monitoring that. So fever, what he has explained, had also been observed even during phase 2 and phase 3 trials. So it falls within what should be expected. And as he has said, even the phase 3 trials would show it would subside, in most cases, within 24 hours, the fever.
Lastly, Dr. Ari, as we wind up, when is the second batch coming into the country?
Yes, thank you, and I need to address this. I know it's an area of concern for many, but I want to reassure Kenyans that they will get their second dose. As the current doses that we are getting from the COVAX mechanism, the second shipment of 2.5 million doses was due the second week of April, or first or second week of April. And COVAX has been in communication with us. They informed us about the delay, and they told us the delay may be 4 weeks, so we are expecting it in the first week of May. I know there is global shortage, but COVAX has actually told us they are in discussion with the government of India to ensure that across the African continent, not just Kenya, that the second doses are delivered as is scheduled. Kenyans, it's good also for Kenyans to know, although the second dose of AstraZeneca is scheduled for 8 weeks, but it can also be given to a maximum of 12 weeks. So we have a safety period where we would ensure that as the vaccines come, we vaccinate every Kenyan as scheduled.
Very many thanks, Dr. Willis. Feels like Lynette and Celestine, we were co-hosting this together, though you're more quiet than I was. Do you feel like the questions that you had, you've been answered, or do you feel you still have more questions? Just in like 5 seconds. Let me start with Lynette.
Thank you, Dennis. I have been answered to some extent, but my question on communication, clarity of communication and timely communication has not clearly been answered. Number two, I also raised a concern about the people who are supposed to be vaccinated. We are told it is those who are 58 and above and the frontliners, and I want to appreciate. But what happens to those who are working as frontline workers and are below 58 years? Does it mean that they are taking a risk when they are being vaccinated against the advice of World Health Organization that the vaccine is only good for people above 58 years?
Well, thank you.
As I finish, Dennis, I have one more concern. The CS...
Very quickly, Lynette, I'm really being pushed to time.
Yes, the CS Health told Kenyans that they will compensate anybody who will die as a result of the vaccination. That question alone eroded a lot of confidence. Can there be clarification about what actually was meant by the fact that if you die out of this vaccination, then your family will be compensated? Thank you, Dennis.
All right. Thank you, Lynette. Thank you, Celestine, Dr. Willis Sakwale, Dr. Githinji. I can see you writing a lot of notes. Trust me, we're going to have a part 2 of this. The conversation doesn't end here. I'm really pressed with time, Dr. Githinji. If you allow me, you want to say something? Okay, I'll give you 10 seconds. 10 seconds, please.
This is really critical. This is critical, and I don't want to contradict my boss, but I am reading here on the WHO that whereas there is a precaution or a caution on pregnancy,
yes,
people who are high risk, health workers who are high risk, they are diabetic, they have hypertension, and they happen to be pregnant, the benefit of vaccination outweighs the risk that may be with the vaccine, if at all. So it's important to leave that message out there.
Well, thank you.
WHO does allow those who are high risk and pregnant to actually receive the vaccine.
Oh my goodness! Don't I wish I had like 2 hours to go? You've been fantastic. You've really done well. I'm really pressed with time. I'm so sorry. And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. We had Dr. Willis Sakwale, who's the chair, COVID-19 Vaccine Deployment Task Force. Dr. Githinji Gitai, Group CEO, Amref Health Africa, Lynette Kamadi, the Executive Secretary, Kupet, and Celestine Lagat, who is a business lady in Eldoret. Thank you so much for your participation, your tweets. Remember, we're going to have a part 2 of this. From this conversation tonight, we realize there's so much to talk about, but we're really pressed with time. Until next time, my name is Dennis Okari. My co-presenter was Zainab Ismail, and David Agondoa was helping us with the sign language interpretation. Have a great night. See you next time. Good night.